Okay, Bethesda.
You got me.
I'm officially excited for Starfield. That presentation, they did a really good job. That's how you present a game. It was thorough. It was comprehensive. They showed a lot of gameplay to justify what they were marketing. And it was all done in a 45-minute presentation that really didn't feel like 45 minutes because a lot of what they were showing looked genuinely cool. And with this presentation, I really got a better grasp for the full scope of the game and just how many layers there are to it, from the boots on the ground stuff to the stuff in space, all the building stuff, all the combat stuff, all the exploration and character progression. This looks easily like Bethesda's biggest game yet. And that's worth keeping in mind that Bethesda has overpromised before, so I'm not ruling out that possibility, but it sounds like they're pretty confident about this one, and hopefully when the final game launches, what they presented here, if that's representative of the final game, and if they can launch something that isn't overly buggy or janky, then Bethesda could have a huge win on their hands here, and Xbox could finally have a major hit of a first-party release that they've desperately needed. This 45-minute showcase was definitely a lot better than the 15-minute one that we got last year, where it was mostly focused on this one sort of barren planet where the player character walked around, did a little combat in this one enemy outpost. The combat looked really janky at the time. The frame rate or frame pacing looked really rough. And it just feels like they didn't show us a whole lot. They did announce things like the shipbuilding and the outpost building and the space dogfighting, but it was presented in a way where it just wasn't all that exciting. But this time, we got so much freaking footage. They just blew this thing out of the water. First of all, the environments in this game really are growing more and more on me, especially with how much they showcase and just how gorgeous they look. And if you compare the 2022 footage to the 2023 one, I mean, there's actually a substantial upgrade in the visuals. And the vistas on the planets or on the cities look incredible. The lighting and all of the atmospheric visual effects really give all of the environments a very scenic and cinematic look. The overall aesthetic of landforms and land masses really stand out and make planets look unique and interesting and visually compelling. Alien creatures looked aesthetically unique, and I'm very curious as to just how much variety there will be when it comes to these kinds of aliens. But so far, they either look terrifying or gross or just in some way really interesting to look at. And then zooming into the smaller objects even, the models and the quality of graphics, it all looks really great. I mean, you look at the frickin' sandwich and the food in general and how detailed they look. The graphics of Bethesda's creation engine has definitely seen an upgrade. I mentioned combat before, and it just seems a lot more impactful this time. When enemies get shot, they actually react instead of being bullet sponges. Melee, when they showed the guy just punching enemies around, that looked a lot more impactful than previous Bethesda games. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kinds of melee builds people make, and hopefully it'll feel as good as they made it look in this marketing. I especially love the vertical mobility in this game with the booster that allows you to dash in the air and move around and dodge or climb up stairs really easily and just take advantage of the Z-axis to really engage with combat in a way that almost makes you feel like a Star Wars bounty hunter. That stuff really looked dope. The gravity stuff, the way planets have different levels of gravity, and you can take advantage of that to jump higher distances, or who knows, in some planets the gravity might be stronger, you might be restricted on that front, and that could be an interesting scenario. But the vertical mobility that combat grants really was a highlight and makes combat look a lot more fun. And then the weapon variety in this game, they finally showed off some of the kinds of weapons we'll be seeing in this title, and there's some really unique looking ones aside from your typical, pistols and assault rifles and shotguns. There's some stuff that, I mean, visually looks really interesting and just straight up look really satisfying to use, really powerful. And the level to which you can mod them, I mean, weapon modding has been a thing in Fallout, but it looks like they're really taking it to the next level. And there's something about the weapon animations and sound effects have been adjusted that do make them feel like they have a punch to them. And so combat actually looked pretty good in this presentation. Like, it's still not perfect, it's still got that Bethesda RPG-ness to it, which is unavoidable because this is an RPG, but for an RPG, combat just felt like it had more impact than I'm used to seeing from Bethesda games. They broke down all of the different activity types that you'll be engaging in, and it just contextualized the game and its scope and just how much freedom you might have in the final game. So you can do things like mining and collecting resources, which can be used to build ships and outposts and craft useful tools and gear and weapons. You can explore and survey biomes, flora and fauna and creatures. And so for those explorers out there who just like to kind of see what's out there in this galaxy, in this universe, they can do that. The boots on the ground combat and missions, that harkens back to classic Bethesda mission structure and quests and engaging with factions and the main campaign and what side quests and side stories are out there. The insanely comprehensive, modular, and flexible shipbuilding, that actually did impress the first time around, but it looked even more impressive this time with the way they broke down just exactly how modular it is and the kinds of ships that the developers have come up with. It just feels like, you know, they're kind of tiers of the kingdoming, the whole shipbuilding system, where they really want players to go crazy with it and build whatever comes to mind. The outpost building stuff, I don't know how much I'll engage with that, but it does grant advantages like allowing you to collect resources passively, and it gives you a place to just be safe within potentially hostile planets. The space gameplay, man, did they extrapolate upon that further, and stuff like derelict ships that you can board, or you can just be a pirate and find other ships and claim them as your own by boarding them and killing everyone inside, or you can engage in ship combat, engage in dogfights, and the dogfighting in this game does look pretty fun, and the gameplay does look pretty thrilling. I love things like the power allocation system, where you have to power different aspects of your ship based on what you want to prioritize. If you want to prioritize mobility, then you can allocate your power to the engine. If you want to prioritize shields and weapons to make those more powerful, if you're engaged in combat, you can do that. If you need to make a swift escape, you can allocate all your power to your grav drive, which allows you to power up your ship to go at light speed and make a jump. It all makes it feel like you're actually managing a ship and not just driving one or piloting one. And so I feel like it's just going to make the ship gameplay in general more engaging and more strategic. You're even managing your own crew. You can recruit companions out and about in the open world or in the open galaxy or open universe and bring them into your ship that you've built and assign them to do different tasks. Or you can take a companion and bring them out with you into the boots on the ground gameplay to engage with you during missions and quests or during combat to help you out. You can also assign NPCs to your outposts that you'll be building to help manage all of that. I'm excited to see the kinds of side quests and stories and interesting settings that you'll see out in space, what the derelict ships will hold, the kinds of encounters you'll have with other crews. And space encounters won't always be hostile. You can stumble upon, say, like a cruise ship, for example, and go in there and see what kinds of eccentric characters and stories await you there and explore that. So there will be locations out in outer space that you get to explore as well, alongside the stuff in the planets. And the story I'm intrigued about because it involves these mysterious artifacts, and they haven't really extrapolated on it much, which I personally like because the more spoiler-free the story can be, the better. Now, in my personal experience of playing Bethesda main quest storylines, they're not as compelling as like a lot of the side quests or a lot of the faction quest lines, but we'll see what they do with this one, and hopefully they make the mystery and plot and intrigue really interesting. I'm very curious to see just how much agency the player's actions will have in the story, how many different endings you can unlock, and how your actions genuinely affect the world, the galaxy, this universe. They actually delve deeper into character progression as well, the kinds of traits that will give you positive and negative effects, which are optional and might pave the road to interesting new interactions. The myriad skills that will shape your playstyle, whether you're a run and gun kind of guy, a melee kind of guy, a stealthy kind of guy, a charming kind of person who uses the silver tongue to get around, whether you're a tech guy who knows how to hack his way around, or a combination of these things. What kinds of weapons and armaments you favor, all of that stuff is, classic Bethesda. I'm very curious to see how the challenge-based skill upgrade system will feel. To level up your skills, the challenges will present scenarios like, kill 25 enemies with this weapon, or do 25 of this thing with this skill. And as you progress through each skill level, those challenges become progressively more difficult. The challenges do essentially seem to bog down to do the thing with the skill that you're supposed to do and do it a certain number of times, which seems reasonable. So, I don't know. It feels like it'll be fine, but we'll see. So just a lot here to unwrap, and not to mention the little details like the freaking adoring fan showing up.
Vectera, by Vectera, by Vectera! Is it really, really you?
Bethesda understood the assignment. Literally the same voice actor, the same eccentric behavior, and you can actually recruit him as a companion, which is just, oh man, that's gonna be fun. Little details like the way, like ballistic weapons, if you shoot them in zero gravity, they actually push you away. And there's still clearly things that they don't want to spoil, like the power that they teased at the end where the player character lifts his hand and suddenly all of the enemies just float up in the air like anti-gravity was activated. It sounds like you'll have Mass Effect-like powers in this game that are likely tied to those mysterious objects that are at the center of the main campaign. And beyond breaking down all of these different elements of the game, the presentation got a lot of developers to speak about their experiences and how they tackled the game, the kind of play style that they went for, what activities they enjoy the most. And so you got a really cool variety of different insights from different developers, and you got to see exactly just how much freedom there is by understanding how different developers approach the game differently. And that kind of commentary just really helped me see the amount of stuff you can do in this game and how many ways there are to do it. So that was a really nice touch. And I just wish more developers presented their games like this, as long as the marketing is accurate to what they're going to be presenting with the final game to players, as long as they're not exaggerating. Again, Bethesda has a track record of that, so we'll see in this case whether they've exaggerated to a great degree in any way, shape, or form. Hopefully not. But so far, so good. This presentation's definitely got me excited about the potential and possibilities of this game, assuming it does deliver on everything that they've highlighted here. Now, there are a few concerns I have about the game based on this presentation. I think the NPC faces still have that uncanny valley feel to them. They have this like 1,000-yard stare. Something about the eyes, I don't know exactly. When it comes to combat, we'll see how the enemy AI will be. Based on the footage that I saw, the enemy AI didn't look like the smartest, but they were showing us a bunch of combat snippets that were kind of cut together, so maybe I didn't get a full scope of the enemy AI during combat, but they just didn't seem the smartest. Now, the footage in this presentation did look significantly smoother than what we saw previously in 2022, but we did get confirmation that Starfield will be 30 frames per second, or at least for, Xbox Series X. On PC, obviously, it depends on the hardware that you have, and that's going to upset a lot of Xbox Series X users. Now, unlike something like Redfall, which felt like the graphics and the static nature of the world didn't justify that it didn't have a performance mode, Bethesda games tend to be very CPU intensive, with just how many objects around the world are interactive and have physics behind them, and just how much simulation is happening around the open world. And not to mention that Bethesda really wants to emphasize graphics fidelity with this game, so it's a little more justified, but at the very least, it has to be a smooth 30 FPS with frame pacing that feels appropriate. Hopefully the 30 FPS gameplay doesn't come at the detriment of this game, given that a lot of it does involve shooting and aiming and whatnot. We'll see. I think it can be justified if it's smooth enough, given how much is going on in this game and all around you, but the performance better be incredibly stable across the board. That's a technical thing that I am concerned about, alongside the possibility that the game will launch and people discover all kinds of crazy bugs and jankiness. Hopefully this will be the most polished Bethesda game release ever. Now, folks from Team Xbox who've seen the game seem to be confident that the game will feel a lot more polished than any previously released Bethesda game. And then finally, I'm concerned about the whole promise of over 1,000 planets, which just seems excessive, and a lot of that they've confirmed will be procedural. So exactly what can you do with those planets? How can you make that compelling to explore those? Are they going to be mostly empty spaces and just resource gathering hubs, or will they find a way to make the content in them compelling? Only time will tell. But what I'm excited about is the prospect of those planets becoming canvases for mods, for entirely new user-created campaigns, or for just really cool ideas that can be realized in these empty canvases. So that's one aspect that I think is going to be really cool. But hopefully the base game justifies the use of over 1,000 planets. Hopefully they will be interesting enough to explore, or will have a place in the game that doesn't just feel like a marketing fluff. Man, I was genuinely impressed. Like, you can see in my reaction of this presentation where I'm slowly getting more and more excited and more convinced. And by the end, I straight up said, okay, Bethesda, you've sold me on this. I'm not necessarily just believing it blindly. I'll still have to get my hands on it. I'll report back what I experience. but I'm finally getting that giddiness from Starfield that I got when they first showed Skyrim, when they first showed Fallout 4. And now it's just a matter of Bethesda executing and delivering on this game. And I feel like they can, but, you know, let's wait until the game comes out. And let's hope that none of this is overpromising anything. And let's hope that Bethesda can come back in a big way, because I really want them to. But we'll see what happens. In the meantime, though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the Starfield presentation. Did it sell you personally? Or are you still in wait and see mode? Or are you still not interested in the game if you weren't before? I, for one, feel like this presentation has finally got me excited about this game. And even if it's not for you, I feel like the presentation was really well done. And this kind of presentation style should be more normalized, as long as it is honest and accurate to and representative of the final game. But share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.